Good morning, and thank you, Nancy, and thank you, all of you, for being here. What we're going to do is just...
Don't walk too far from this.
Don't walk far from this. So tether me back if I get too far away. I always forget about the recorder things. I hope that you'll find us just to be very practical. So I've been with Reach Global for 18 and a half years and doing member care and have seen a whole lot of different team situations. And somewhere along the line, somebody said to me, it'd be really helpful if we had some tools to help us get at some discussions and to get help to just address some of the topics that we are seeing. So I actually put together a resource for our organization that's 100 pages. I'm not giving you all 100 pages today. I'm just giving you a sample of, I just call it a Healthy Teams Toolbox that I put together for our organization. And it has a whole lot of different categories, and so if you're facing this problem, you can use this tool. If you're facing this situation, you can use this tool. And so again, I'm just giving you a sample today of some of those, and I'm just going to tell you how I've used them, and you're actually going to get to practice on a couple of them. So I hope you're up for it, just some practical application. And I'm sure you realize that teams are teams, and so probably some of these things would apply to your mission committee team, your Bible study group, maybe even a family group, or a church staff. There's a lot of applications besides cross-cultural teams. So we, as I said, just want to try to make it really practical for you today, and some things that you could take with you. In our organization, we believe in teams. We feel like missionaries being placed in teams is really the way to go. So as much as possible, we always will have people in a team. We have a couple of situations where there's one couple, but we try to avoid that because we really believe it is the biblical model to work in teams. We feel like there's all kinds of reasons for that, but Jesus chose to have a team. We really believe that it's best for safety, for community, for efficiency, for longevity, is to really have people around you. So we have people working in 46 different countries in our organization, approximately 600 adults. So what are some of the challenges that you have observed as you have worked with teams, whatever they are, whether it's a mission committee, whether it's a church staff, maybe you've experienced these things, maybe you've just observed them. Just throw out some general categories. What have you seen as being challenges?
Some like free-spirited, and others like to have rules.
That's right. Yep. Some are very rule-oriented. Some like, let's just leave our options open. Good. What else?
A good missionary is a rugged individualist.
There you go. Yeah. Yeah. We sort of value that. And actually Americans do, don't we? We value that independence and, pull yourself up by your bootstraps. And then missionaries get out there and they get placed in a team and they're like, what? You expect me to care for my fellow missionaries? I didn't sign up for that. I signed to work with the nationals, and I'm not here for, the missionaries, and on it goes. So you first got to get them to buy into the fact that they need to care for their fellow missionaries as well. Good. What else? Yeah.
Poor group protocols for building team trust.
Absolutely. Yeah. Maybe just expecting it to happen or not really talking about it, or, different expectations. Yep, absolutely. Not really a system in place. Yeah.
Different levels of experience.
Yep.
Those oftentimes who come in with little experience have confidence in all that they know, and those who have been there a long time also have confidence.
Exactly. That's so true. Yep, it's so true. And the longer they've been on the field, sometimes they forget what it's like coming in, or, they don't always have patience for each other. Yep.
We found it not all just interpersonal conflict, but if the whole team's burnt out, if the whole team is low,
absolutely.
it's a real challenge.
It does. And it's like, how do we get pulled back up? Where does our vision get elevated? Yep, absolutely. Anything else that comes to mind?
I would emphasize leadership.
Yep.
A lot of times the way leadership is chosen, somebody, you need a leader. You
Yes.
get, and they do the best they can. But,
Right. Yeah. Leadership challenges in a whole bunch of different ways. How does that leader get put into place? Why didn't I get put there? Why didn't they get put there? All of those kinds of things are very real issues. So you have all identified some things that sorry, did you have something to add here?
Also, certain challenges in a field. For example, it's illegal to try to convert someone.
Sure.
And then others feel, but God has told us to go
Yes.
everywhere.
That's right. On those fields, there might be different willingness to step into risk or to, what are we comfortable with as far as our exposure, and all sorts of different philosophies along there. Very good. All right, so I'm going to take you through some of these, and I'm going to just point out to you in your packets some potential tools that you could use to get at some of these things. And like I said, I'm going to have you sort of practice a couple of these a little bit. And this list that I have is by no means comprehensive. You guys have seen probably a lot more than this, and I wasn't able to put them all in here. People ask me often, so what are the typical issues that you see in member care? And I say, typical issues. I tell you what, my team actually every 4 or 5 years, we compile a list of everything that we encountered during the previous year. The last time we did it, there was 88 things on the list, different items. So, it's hard to come up with typical for missionaries, but I try to bring out some categories here. So first of all, I just don't understand you. None of us would say that we expect the person next to us to be exactly like we are. We wouldn't really say that. If I were to ask you, now, do you expect him to be exactly like you? Do you expect him to think like you? Do you expect him to have the same background? Do you expect him to like the same things? And all of you would say, no, I don't expect that. The reality is, when we act out, or when we, in our behavior, we act as though we actually do believe that. Because guess what? He doesn't like the same things that you do. And guess what? He doesn't act like you and doesn't have the same values. And we're surprised. It's like, wait, where are you coming from? Wait, what? What's the matter with you? Why don't you think this way? Or why don't you agree with me? Or why don't you? And we all are like that. And so in order to kind of address this issue, we have to be willing to take time to know each other. We have to be willing to take time to understand each other and to listen to each other and not make assumptions. And so one of the most important things that we can do on a team is to take time to know each other, to listen, to understand, and to just explore. What do you think about this? What do you think about this? Or how do you behave in certain situations? It takes time, but we need to be willing to do that because it is so foundational. In Lencioni's thing, he talked about trust. It's hard for you to trust someone that you don't really know, or you don't know where they're coming from. But once you understand them and you know more about them, you're much more able and willing to trust them. So we need to be willing to take the time for that. And by the way, every time a new member joins a team, that is now a whole different team. The team dynamics change. So every time a new member joins the team, even if the rest of you have been together for 20 years, you now have to go through some of these same exercises again because it is now a new team with a new team member. So we need to be willing to keep working on this. It's a lifelong project as long as that team is together. So some of the tools that you have in your packet there are this. And well, let me first tell you, in our organization, we really do believe that, and I know this is probably hard for you to read down here, but we do Myers-Briggs, We do strength finders. We do DISC. We have them tell their story, as Anna explained last night. That's a powerful tool, and you can do all sorts of versions of that telling your story. You can do a 6-minute version. You can do a timeline of, where they get to tell their story for one whole day. I mean, there's all sorts of ways of getting at this, but it's really powerful for having to have people tell their story. And then we do all sorts of activities around these other assessments, Myers-Briggs, Strength Finders, and DISC. So there's just helpful tools out there these days. There's a lot of other team type instruments that have a lot of validity, but whatever can help you get a common language is what's really helpful. So if we are talking around the same concepts, it really helps the team a great deal. So now in your packet, I've given you 3 different samples of things that you can use. The first is called Getting to Know You, a Quick Guide to Preferences. And we're going to sample that in a minute, but one way to use that is just one-on-one interview. Tell me, do you think out loud or do you think in your head? Do you like to work alone or do you like to work with people? Do you like to plan your vacation or do you just like to see what unfolds? And you can do a quick interview. You'll probably, those of you that are familiar will recognize that the questions actually come from Myers-Briggs and DISC and some of those, and it's just a way to put it into a really quick interview form. We're going to sample that in just a minute. There's also one in there called Getting to Know You, Ask Me Anything. So this is where you just sit down with somebody and you just say, tell me where you lived when you were 5. Tell me what you're afraid of. Tell me, you get to ask the questions, they answer, you switch. It's just a fun activity. That's an activity that you could do at the beginning of, say, a team meeting. You could take 5 minutes to do that activity. And then the next team meeting, you're going to do it again and ask different questions. So some of these activities are, you could take several hours on and some 5 minutes. It's your choice. You can adapt them, but they're things to get at those conversations. By the way, if you have a question or a comment, please raise your hand, because otherwise I just kind of go, and if you want to say something, or please feel free, because you guys have a lot of great thoughts and ideas as well. One other sample thing that I've given you there is called What's Really Important to You. Everybody has different things that they value. And this is just a quick sheet and I've tried to put these in order of what I'm talking about. So this would probably be the third one in your packet there. So you just have people go through, like, on a scale of, I can't remember what I had on there, but 1 to 3 or something. 1 to 5, okay. These things are sort of non-essentials for me, and then you talk about them as a team. We have a lot of fun with this. We have some aha moments with this. For example, if you find out that one person on your team really values safety and another person on your team really values adventure, there might be times on your team where you're going to have some conflict, especially as you talk about your risk management plan. Because somebody's going to say, oh, it's fine, let's go. And others are going to go, no, we need to protect. So those are things you just need to bring out in the open. And it's a whole lot easier to bring them out into the open before you have a problem. So if you know that going into a situation, it's really helpful. My team, the team that I lead a team of 15 people that provide member care through Outreach Global. And we do a lot of these exercises, and we find that we find ourselves going back to them and laughing about, oh yeah, I remember you don't like small groups, or yeah, you don't like fun, or so and so you can just really enjoy these things, and they bring you together as you talk about them, as you laugh about them, as you understand each other. All right, so we're going to sample one of these, as I said. So I hope you're ready to get into this. So what we're going to do is we're going to actually form 2 lines. And so I'm going to have you choose a side. So over here, if you prefer ideas, over here, if you prefer facts. Ideas, facts. Like you like the big dream, you like the big vision. No, I just need to know how is this going to work out. You love the concept. It's like, how could it be? It's like, no, how is that really going to happen? You're right in the middle.
Yeah,
Okay.
right in the middle. I like
All right,
that.
that's okay. We can have middle people. It's all right. Depends. This is the depends part. Like we don't know. It depends on the circumstance, right? All right.
I can go with both.
Right, and you can. Sometimes that's the reality. It depends sometimes. And sometimes people are very... You don't know. Okay, these people, you like them both. Okay. So these people are usually the ones that are like, man, I've got this great idea. Let's do this, and it's going to be beautiful. And these people over here are like, but how are you going to pay for it? And who's going to do that? And you guys are going to be like, you're raining on our parade. And that's the reality of team life, right? You've got the people over here who are saying, but what does that mean? How does that work? We've done that and it didn't work. You guys are like, yeah, but it's going to be great. Come on, let's try it. And you guys over here, it just depends on the circumstance, right? And that's
Just want us all to
okay.
be happy.
Depends on, yeah, just want everybody to be happy. And this is the reality of how things work out. So the thing is that when you're talking about an idea on a team, you don't necessarily see things visualized physically like this. All you know is that you presented an idea, and all of a sudden somebody is saying, no, we can't do that, or that's not going to work. And we're like, wait, what? Because you don't physically see it pictured. All you know is that you're bumping against something here. But the reality is, we totally need both sides. We need these people who give us the dream and the vision, and these people over here who say, now let's see how this is really going to work. The Sydney Opera Center is a prime example of how this did not happen. There was a contest for an architect, and they chose an architect for the Opera Center. And if you've seen the Sydney Opera Center, you know it's absolutely an amazing design. It was an amazing design, but they didn't stop and ask the people over here, now what's going to be the impact on acoustics, and what do we need to do? So the center actually ended up taking, I think, 3 times as many years and costing like 4 times as much as it was supposed to, because they had to keep stopping and redoing it because they hadn't looked at the details. The idea, the vision was beautiful, but both sides need to work together. All right, so let's do maybe 1 or 2 other categories here. Okay, this side, if you like change, you just like things to just mix it up. This side, if you prefer things to just be routine, let's keep the routine. This side, you like things change, mix it up. This side, you like routine. We need things to stay as they are. And in the middle, it depends on the circumstance.
You can be okay with change, or if it's going to stay the same.
There you go. It's okay. Yeah. And what this is actually a physical demonstration of Myers-Briggs, if you haven't already realized that. These concepts come out in Myers-Briggs. And in Myers-Briggs, they say, you have a strong preference one way or the other, or you don't have a strong preference. And so that's what we're physically seeing right now as a demonstration of Myers-Briggs. Okay, so you people over here, you like things to be stable. You people over here like things to be kind of keep moving and changing, mix it up. So what do you think are going to be the implications of team life then? What's going to happen?
We're going to get bored if things stay the same.
Yep, you're going to get bored, and then what's going to happen? You might start behaving badly, right?
You'll split up one way.
What are you guys gonna do?
We're very anxious if they keep changing things.
Yeah, you're gonna get anxious. It's like, wait, why would we do this? And what are we doing? And yeah. And the thing is, 75% of the population in general likes things to remain stable. But leaders usually like things to move quickly. And so we have to remember that these people will get on your side if they understand and if they have time to process. So those are concepts that we need to be aware of. Okay, let's do one more sample here. Okay, over here, if you try to avoid last-minute stressors, over here, if you like the challenge of last-minute stressors, over here it's like if you're going to catch a plane, you're going to be at the airport 2 hours ahead of time. Over here it's like, nah, half hour's fine.
Oh, no, you had to use that example. Oh, you had to use that example.
Okay.
It's like leaving after
These folks avoid last-minute stressors. These folks like, no, we need to, it's okay, we can be at the airport a half hour. So the way this works out in team life is like you've got a project to do. These people over here are like, oh, I've got 2 weeks. I don't need to start on the project. It's okay, no problem. You guys are over here. Oh, wait, no, I mixed that up. All right, my brain is rewired. Okay, so the opposite. Those folks over here are like, no, we got time. We don't need to start on it. You guys over here are like, why aren't you doing anything? We need to get this thing going. Now wait, what's our plan? What are our steps? And okay, we need to do this thing, and then we need to do this. And you guys over here are like, you guys are just uptight. Relax, it's okay. The reality is you need to be able to communicate, because what happens then is that this side gets mad at this side gets mad at this side. You don't totally always understand why. There's tensions, there's irritations, there's frustrations, and resentment. Like, you guys are lazy, you guys are uptight, and unless you bring it into the open and say, you know what, I understand that you really can't function until you get to the deadline, and you guys say, you know what, I understand you really need to know the steps, so how can we work this out together? What are our compromise steps that we can figure out? Can I trust you guys that you are going to get it done? And can I trust you guys that you're going to just do it at your pace and let me do it at my pace? You know, whatever it is, we need to bring it out into the open and discuss it. Okay, well, thanks for your willingness. You can sit back down. That's just a sample of one way that you can use this getting to know you. Or you could just do it in interviews, in a group. Yeah, you could do it in small groups. You could do it however works. You could do it as a whole team. You could have the team take the checklist and then talk about it. And the thing is, when you're talking about it on an actual team you work with, you've got real life examples to pull from. You can say, it was like, oh yeah, that's what happened when we, you know, this and this and this. All right, any questions about any of that? It just got you up and moving a little bit. Okay. Another point of challenge is differing expectations. And you know, almost always when I ask new missionaries, I just worked with a group of new missionaries this past week, and I ask, what are your expectations? Guess what they say? I don't have any. That's right. Almost always, I don't have any. Oh no, I'm flexible. Oh no, I don't have any. We all think we don't have expectations until they're not met. And then we find out, oh, I guess I did have an expectation about that. So some of the things that teams will bump up against, excuse me, on this whole expectation thing. Team relationships. Are we going to be best buddies, or are we just going to be colleagues? Do we just work together and, you know, we act nice together and we're polite together and we care for one another? Or are we going to be like, every week we're going to have a potluck and I know that I can meet with you daily for prayer? Where are we going to be? What does team relationships mean? I was with, like I said, these new missionaries this past week, and they said, well, we expect to have good relationships. And I said, okay, that's fine, but define good relationships. What's good to you might not be good to you. And they're both valid, but we just need to understand what is it that we can commit to here. And if I can't commit to having a potluck with you every week, is there a compromise position or some way that we can meet your need and meet my need as well? So that's one area that I've seen missionaries have some struggles with, is exactly the nature of what that relationship is going to be like. And the challenge with, and you know this, missionary teams is that if you're not, the team is all you have. It's not like if you aren't getting your needs met here, you can go over here. It's all, you put all your eggs in this one basket. You expect everything. The weight of everything goes on this one team, because it's not like you have other options. In the U.S., if we don't like a church, we just go to a different church. Well, you don't have that option as missionaries. So it puts more weight, it puts more stress on those missionary relationships, because you have to be the all in all for each other, or it feels that way sometimes. Language learning. You don't always agree on, are we going to use an individual tutor? Am I going to go to the language school? Am I going to use an online class? What's acceptable? What's okay? Is it okay if a wife with small children steps out of language learning, or does she have to put in as many hours as the husband? Those are just some issues that you have with language or with expectations there. Ministry focus. What is going to be our ministry focus? Are we going to have a compassion focus? Are we going to plant a church? How are we going to plant the church? Those kinds of things. Use of time and resources. I worked with a team once. They couldn't agree on what was appropriate for vacation days and days off, and how they were going to use that time off, and was it okay to go to the beach once a week, and that sort of thing, and use of money and even short-term resources. Family dynamics. Is it okay for the wife? Does the wife have to be on the team? Does she go to all the team meetings if she's got young children at home? Is that a good expectation? Is it okay for her to spend her time homeschooling? Is it okay to send your kids to the national school? Child rearing expectations. I've had teams who just really are frustrated with each other about the fact that this family over here just doesn't discipline their kids, or they have different parenting philosophies, and it creates a great deal of tension, because now we don't want them coming to the team meetings because of their kids. So these are all things that we have expectations about, and just these plus a whole lot more. I'm sure you understand of what our expectations are, our living arrangements. If I'm single, do I have to share a house with somebody? All of those kinds of things. So a tool that I put in your packet, which you could use for this, is just that it's called Expectations. If you can help people identify some expectations that they have around particular topics, and especially once they've been on the field for a while and they realize that they had expectations about those things that they bumped up against, and then if you can help each other say, well, now how did you respond? Well, I stopped talking to my team members, or I withdrew, or whatever. So if you can help each other just talk through, what do you think is helpful for you in this situation? I've got another tool which I didn't include, but where a team leader will just list what they need from team members, and team members list what they need from team leaders. And just bringing that out into the open, and a team leader just being able to negotiate in a sense with, like, yeah, I can do this for you, or, the reason I can't do this that you're asking is X, Y, Z, and same both ways. But the main thing is just to get the conversation out into the open and allow people to really talk about what it is that they need from each other, what do they need in certain circumstances, And if you're getting frustrated, I maybe will understand then that there's an expectation of yours that's not being met, and I might need to modify my behavior or whatever those conversations are. Okay, another source of challenge, of course, is we're from different cultures. People think very differently, obviously. They have different cultural values. We don't always know our own cultural values. We don't always know, we just know that other people are different and they do things differently. Even big issues, and Laura May Gardner was talking about this a little bit, of how we resolve conflict. Asians will resolve conflict very differently than Westerners. And are we going to force them to solve conflict in the way that we think is appropriate? Or are we going to accept the way that they feel they need to solve the conflict? So I put in your packet it's just a very brief assessment, but it can help to get at some of these issues. It's called the Cultural Values Assessment, and in there I borrowed from Dwayne Elmer's categories of cultural differences, the high context, low context, those kinds of things. What I've done with us on teams who have multicultural is I have them go through and check where they think, which side of the scale they think they're on culturally, and then I have them rate talk about what they think the culture that they're working in is, how it would rate, and then I have them put it on that last sheet there that you have, and I know I didn't number the pages, but there's a list there where, let me show it to you. So the last page is this, where they go through for each category. You put the name of the people who prefer that side or the other, or that cultural behavior, and then you have them rate what they think the culture they're in. And it's really interesting because you see it in black and white, and then you begin to see why there's some differences amongst you. And why you might be struggling with the culture that you're working in because of differences or whatever. I had a team once that had some Chinese workers on it, and the team leader thought that the team was doing beautifully and that there was no conflict. And when we talked with the Chinese gals individually, they said, no, things are not great. But they would never tell their team leader that because of saving face. And so there just needs to be some ways of getting at some of these discussions and bringing them out into the open. And again, we don't always recognize these things about our own culture, so it's helpful to think through those things together. All right, so I'm kind of flying through these, again, trying to give you a sample, trying to give you some ideas of some practical ways that you can get at some of these discussions. The next challenge that I've listed is just, and one of you said this here, outside stresses affect our team relationship. I'm sure it's no surprise, obviously, that all of us have life stresses. Cross-cultural workers just have a few extra ones because of the culture that they're in. So they're being bombarded with stress about culture and language, living environment, loneliness and isolation, financial concerns for their family near or far, and we could list many, many other stresses that they're dealing with. The challenge can come in when everybody needs to recover or respond to stress in different ways. Some people just need to just talk, and then they feel better. Other people need to go do some physical hard activity, like go for a run or hit a basketball. Other people need to withdraw and read a book or watch a movie. Everybody has different ways of needing to respond and recover from stress. If we don't recognize that, we can bump up against each other. So if I just have a conversation about how your stress is affecting me and how my stress is affecting you, we can really begin to build those bridges and understanding of one another. One thing that happens with single women is because they don't have often a place where they can talk out where they can process. So like a husband and wife will process with each other. They'll go back to their dwelling and they'll just process, and they'll just say, what did you think about what happened today? And oh man, that was really hurtful, or that was so hard, and they can process with each other. And a wife might get very emotional in front of her husband, and the husband, he doesn't think she's going loony bins. But a single woman doesn't have that place. So her place is often in the team meeting. That's where she'll process, and she'll fall apart, and she'll cry, and sometimes people can say, oh, wow, she's going loony bins. And it's just we just need to recognize what's going on. No, she's not going loony bins. She's just processing with her family. And we need to be able to recognize that and say, no, this is what she needs right now. She needs to process with her family. So your stress affects me, my stress affects you, but we need to know exactly what is happening. We need to know if your stress is affecting me too much. Am I taking on too much of your stress? Are you bringing too much of your stress to a team meeting? Is our team unable to move forward because of the way that you are bringing stress all the time? And then do we need to, talk about that to relieve your stress and so that it's not impacting the team? Sometimes we have to remove a team member for a time in order for the team to be able to move forward. If I see a team leader taking too much of their time and energy with just one person, then I try to help a team leader work with that person for a season away from the team so that the team is able to move forward, the team leader is able to move forward. Hope that makes sense. But we just have to be able to really be willing to help and encourage one another, talk about the reality that we all have stress, but how can we really help each other? And one thing that I work on really hard with my member care team is we don't want people to be stuck. So if you see people bringing the same stress again and again and again and again, there needs to be a time where we need to not be wusses, as Lencioni said. We need to say, you know what, it feels to me like you're stuck in your problems. What is it that you are willing to do to address your issue? What do we need to do so that you are unstuck and that we're not going around the same bush again and again and again? Because sometimes people begin to be comfortable with their problems and they kind of like them. It kind of becomes their identity. And they need to be willing to move beyond those for the sake of themselves as well as their team. Again, interrupt me if anything I'm saying doesn't make sense or you have a question about it. Okay, that was You, Me, and Stress was the tool on there. So that's this one that looks like this with the 3 columns and then the green column. You just talk through, what have you observed, how people act in stress, and how it affects you. Just any number of ways. Any of these tools that I'm giving you, obviously you can take and just sort of tweak or adapt or change around. They're not scripture. They're just ideas for you to take and use as starter discussions with your people. So that's what that is. Okay, another challenge, our team dynamics are poor. And again, lack of trust. I just don't trust you. In the tool that I've given you on there, Trust Busters and Trust Builders, I've given you a little story illustration from myself. The story illustration is I've been a runner for years. I try to run to keep my mind and body going. I ran for like 25, 30 years before I ever had a problem with a dog. And then one day I had a dog who just leapt out and bit me. And, it caused all sorts of pain physically and, I had to go through all this legal stuff and so forth and so on because the dog had to be quarantined, So it was just a long, old, painful process. Okay, so guess what happened with me now and dogs and running?
Afraid of dogs.
Yeah, I was afraid of dogs. I'd see a dog coming towards me. It was not that same dog. It was a different dog. I still was afraid. There was alarm bells that would go off in my brain. What's that dog going to do to me? Oh no, that dog might bite me. I think I'll go the other side of the street. You know, eventually the alarm bells get softer. But this is just an illustration of the fact people that come onto your teams have had past experiences. They've been bitten. And it might not be you who has done the biting, but they're reacting to you. And so it's not your fault, right? You don't have any control. But you have to be able to understand, where does that come from? Why are they reacting to me? Why are they afraid of me? Why do they not trust me? What is it that I can understand about this person to understand where they're coming from? So again, we need to have conversations about it. And we're going to practice this one in just a minute, but I want to point out a couple more things on here. So, yeah, the tools for this are this Trust Busters and Trust Builders one. You've got a Bible study in here on just conflict, where, I mean, this is sort of a non-threatening way to talk about conflict principles and how you're going to deal with conflict on your team. There is what I call a problem-solving talk. That's the last one, example that you have here, of some sort of operating principles when you do have a problem on a team. And so those are some things. Besides lack of trust, teams often struggle with poor communication. They just don't want to talk about things, or they make assumptions. I don't know how many of you have seen Lois Dodd's salt versus sugar acronym, but it is so helpful. Lois Dodd's is with Heartstreams. And I use this, and I hear teams all the time come back to me, oh, Lois, they just need salt versus sugar. So let me just really explain it to you. Salt is, I see something, S, I assume something, I label you, and I tell someone else. So I see you take a cookie off the table, I see that, I assume you're a thief. I label you, you're a thief. And I tell someone, hey, guess what, he's a thief, he steals cookies. Versus sugar. I see something, I want to understand you, I want to understand. So I go to you and say, hey, how come you took those extra cookies? So I go to them, G, go. And, oh man, I lost it already.
G.
A-R. Oh, ask, right, thank you. Go, ask. And then reconcile. So I go and I ask, now, why did you take those cookies? Well, I'm taking them for the nursery worker down here. Oh, I see. You're not a thief. You're just really a kind person. So this is just a small illustration of what we do. We just assume something, we put a label on them, and on we go, assuming that we're right. Instead of going to them, asking, could you explain to me? Could you tell me? Oh, okay, great. Thank you. Such a simple thing, but a powerful principle that Lois Dodds gave to us. Unresolved conflict, that's obvious. Power struggles, I should be team leader, you should be team leader. One of you talked about that. How come they've got more money in their support fund than I do? How come they're more recognized? How come people like them more? Any of those power struggles that we human beings are so prone to going into. But yeah, those are just some of the potential lack of good relational dynamics that happen. Now I want you to pull out the Trust Buster, Trust Builder one. We're kind of running slow on time, so low on time. So we're going to take 5 minutes, and I want you to sample this with maybe 2 or 3 other people. Just quick huddle. And you're only going to be able to just barely start on this. But just list things that you find to be trust busters and things that you find to be trust builders. So you're working on, sorry, I gave you a lot of pieces of paper. I know it's confusing sometimes. Yeah, so this one, it says trust busters, trust builders, and it has the boxes on the bottom. So just huddle up real quick. Just start this, and then just list What do you find to be trust builders? What do you find to be trust busters?
Someone yells at you for fighting with the
Am I enough?
Well, maybe you could say so instead of, yeah, if that's what happens, how can they make it right.
You were talking about it. So then we thought you were saying stuff about your
Well, no, it has to do with product and products, just like some products. Everybody else. Stay in there. Stay in the meeting. Yeah, it did say.
I start to think that
they're not teaching.
Taste test, and you see, this does go outside. And that's the
Someone who doesn't.
And as you do see it, maybe stay in here, maybe we'll share something a little more heavier.
And, yeah, I mean, a trust builder out of it. Called me in.
It's also very
Okay, about a half minute more and I'm going to bring it to a close.
time waste. Social, you know what I mean? So that's maybe not cultural.
My office, 4 times a year.
Let's bring it to a
Understanding and trying to find common ground. I think it's sorting out okay, that change only.
Okay, let's bring it to a close.
Yeah.
I know that this, you only just barely got started, but hopefully it will give you a sample, an idea. You can stay where you are because I'm just going to talk for a couple minutes. So I just want you to have hope. Great team dynamics are truly possible. I've worked with teams that you would look at them and you'd think, how in the world do these people get along? Because they're so completely different and they just love each other to death. So it is possible to have great team dynamics. You can work through these things. And the thing is, when the body of Christ works together, it is the most beautiful thing in the world, right? So it's worth our time, it's worth our energy. It is our greatest evangelism tool to have healthy relationships with each other. So it's worth pursuing. I know that eventually this PowerPoint will be available on the website, so you'll have these resources. I just wanted to quickly point these out to you if you're not already familiar with them. And there's a lot more than this. On the back table, if you would like to have a PDF version of the handouts that I gave, you can just give me your name and your email and I'll send you a PDF of this. I do have, as I said, a long version. It's 100 pages. If you want that, you can indicate that. But I don't want to flood people with stuff either. So that's it. If you would take a couple minutes and do the evaluation, thank you so much for coming and being here today. Appreciate it.